Hello YouTube, this is Bruno. My survival server, the Hemisphere server, updated to 26.2, and of course the first thing I did was to create a sulfur farm, or a sulfur spike farm. And after creating it on a survival server it works fine, but I realized that this farm is actually overcomplicated, so I made a smaller design. And let's jump to creative and show you the design. So you can grow sulfur spikes if you have a spike under a sulfur block like that and a solid surface, then the spikes may form on the ground or in the air. And the process is very slow. So for a single spike it takes on average 100 minutes to grow. And with the growth being so slow, I went for a farm that has a lot of spikes. So we want to make it very compact, and that means flying machines. Also, I wanted it to fit in an area that I can chunk load, so it had to fit in a 3x3 chunk area. And the most efficient way to do that is like that. You have basically one block space under the spikes and you have a solid surface, but you have non-sticky blocks. So here I use pumpkins. You could of course also use stuff like glazed terracotta or moss or whatever else doesn't stick to slime. And then twice a day, controlled by a daylight sensor, I will start a number of flying machines. This flying machine will both break the spikes on top and push the items that fall down to the other side. On the other side, I also have a row of non-sticky block with one immovable block, which in this case is a furnace, and the items go into the water stream and then go into a collection system. The flying machine that I use here is a self-returning flying machine by Ilmango. So basically when it hits the other side and it hits this unmovable block here, the furnace, it will just return. So to start the flying machines I use this daylight sensor here. I do compare the light level to 9. So to make sure that if a player sleeps, we will start the flying machines anyway, because if a player sleeps immediately, then the light level will not return to 0. Here, if we compare it to 9, the light level will go below 9, and it will still be above 9 if we have thunderstorm or something like that. Let's wait until the flying machines return, and you see we have water streams on both sides. So if some spikes form while the flying machines are running on the return way, we will put the spikes here into this water stream. Yeah, so we will update a trapdoor with the scaffolding, and this will change the state of the scaffolding if this trapdoor opens or closes, which will activate this load block, which starts the flying machine. And we propagate this here along the way. I use scaffolding, of course, so that you can scale up the whole thing. And this is what I did here. So basically, this is just 4 copies of the farm on top of each other. But in this case, you can use the scaffolding to relay the signal to the top. So if I turn off this daylight sensor, then all of the flying machines will start at once. The rates of this farm, and this is the small version, are about 1100 sulfur spikes per hour. For the large version, of course, it's something like 4400, and you can stack as many modules as you like on top of each other. The only bottleneck will be the collection here. Now, in this case, we have a lot of spikes because I didn't run the farm for a long time, so all of the spikes were grown. But usually, if the farm is in operation, it's sufficient to have one double speed collection. And I do use a filter here because I don't want any, I don't know, zombie or a drowned dying here and the rotten flesh clogging up the crafter. So we have a double speed setup. The items will go into this crafter at double speed, and the crafter will craft sulfur blocks. But we also take some of the items down this way, and we have 2 double chests with sulfur spikes. So if you want those. So in this setup, basically half of the spikes will go down in this chest until all of these hoppers are full, of course. Then everything will go into the crafter. And the sulfur blocks go into the usual shulker box loader by lots. So that we have outputs shulker boxes of sulfur and sulfur spikes here. Now the size of this farm is actually exactly 3x3 chunks, or rather we have some immovable blocks or some border blocks sticking out on the side here. But this means we can use a chunk loader here in the middle to load all of the farm. If you don't want to use a chunk loader, or if you want to use 2 chunk loaders, of course you can extend this. You can make this area here as long as you want. So for this setup I actually use 6 of these self-returning flying machines, which are 8 blocks wide each. This gives a total of 48 blocks, which is exactly 3 chunks. Now you can reduce the number of flying machines and reduce the complexity a bit if you do something like that. So basically you use 12 wide strips of blocks that are pushed by these self-returning flying machines. The drawback of this setup here is that we need a few more blocks in width for the flying machine, so we need 3 more blocks, so we lose a bit of space. And also you must be very careful not to power these observers through growing spikes. So for example, if you would do something like that, if the flying machine moves, a spike could grow right in front of the observer, and this would break the flying machine. So what I did here is I had the observer here at the bottom, and we have an additional row of blocks here. So this would be under sulfur if you stack the farm, but obviously at the end we need a water stream to move the items, or you just don't plant spikes here. Well, that's an alternative, but the farm that I would really recommend would be this one. Personally, I don't mind building a few of these self-returning flying machines. I can do it right now in my sleep. And again, this is, I think, the most compact I can make a farm in a 3x3 chunk area. Now, if you want to stack a few more modules, you might have to do something about the collection. So this has a capacity of 18,000 spikes per hour, but of course the flying machines run only twice a Minecraft day because of lag consideration. So this is a bit laggy if we have all these flying machines. So basically all of the spikes will come in a very short time. So we might get, I don't know, 10 stacks of spikes for each harvest. And it will take a bit of time until this filter has caught them all. Now, if you want to stack more modules, you would have to do a faster collection. Because, of course, items will despawn after 5 minutes. So you need to collect all of these spikes within 5 minutes. But for me, stacking 4 of these modules is fine. The output is over half a shulker per hour of the sulfur blocks. So this, I think, is not too bad. So what's the issue with my first design that I did here on the Hemisphere server? There I used a larger gap of 3 blocks between the top spikes and the bottom, and I used 2 flying machines on top to harvest the ones growing from the top, and at the bottom to push the ones that have grown there. And in theory this would be a bit faster because it allows the spikes to grow 2 or even 3 states per cycle. However, since they grow so rarely, we have on average like a 10% chance that a spike grows during each cycle. So we only have a 1% chance that the spike grows twice, give or take a bit. So bottom line is it's actually very, very unlikely that a spike would grow twice between harvests. So we don't need the setup here. We can do it with just a gap of 1 block and 1 flying machine. Now, one issue that we have here is that sometimes a few spikes will fly out on this side, so they will miss the water stream and fly out. This is why I created this wall here. And the wall here is right at the chunk border. So the spikes that hit the wall will still be in the loaded area, they will fall down and they will despawn. Now, it's not a lot of them, but if you let the farm run for days and days, or maybe weeks, then you could get a few thousand items that would, without this wall, shoot out, end up in unloaded chunks. So once you load the chunk again, they would all accumulate and slow down the server. So if you chunk load this area and if you want to run the farm for a long time, then it's probably a good idea to build a wall like that just at the chunk border. Otherwise, I'm happy with this farm. With both versions actually. Now I already got 9 shulker boxes of sulfur, and I think I finished the farm yesterday, so it's been running for a bit over a day. This farm is chunk loaded because I have an amethyst farm with 2 geodes down here. So this is a farm that I chunk load anyway, using this chunk loader here. So I think it was quite natural to use the chunk loaded area to add a second farm. Of course, I can turn off this farm if I want to, and then it won't cost any more performance. Quick farm, quick video. Hope you liked it. Please leave a like if you want to see more content like this. Please subscribe so that you don't miss any of my videos, and see you next time. Bye bye.